She said just one thing. Sorry, I'm busy that night. 3 days later, her position was restructured. But when they discovered the name behind the $88 million formula had vanished from the system, it was too late. Because she hadn't just refused a drink, she'd refused to submit. And then she put her hands on the leverage. My name is Lauren Whitaker, and at 39, I'd spent the last 11 years building something that mattered. Not just a career, a breakthrough. As head of research and development at Cinvatech, I wasn't just another suit walking the glass corridors of our Austin headquarters. I was the architect behind a therapeutic formula that would soon command an $88 million valuation in our Series D round. The night everything shifted started like any other corporate celebration. The Founders Club on the 42nd floor, all marble and pretense, packed with executives toasting another quarter of exceptional growth. I nursed a single glass of champagne, watching the peacocking and calculating how soon I could slip away to review the latest trial data. That's when Marcus Thornton, our CEO, materialized at my elbow, 6'3" of calculated charm and Armani, with that particular smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Lauren," he said, steering me toward the windows overlooking downtown. "Spectacular work on the IND filing. The board's thrilled." "Thank you, Marcus. The team really pulled through on the timeline." He waved away the deflection. "Your team, your vision." Then, lowering his voice like we were conspirators, "Victoria's been asking about you." Victoria Thornton, the trophy wife who collected executive friendships like designer handbags. "She's hosting a little gathering after this," he continued. "Very exclusive. She specifically requested you join us for drinks at the penthouse. Say 10:30. The way he said requested made it clear this wasn't a request. In the reflection of the window, I watched his face, the expectation, the assumption of compliance. I'd seen this play before. The private gatherings where female executives were paraded like show ponies, expected to laugh at Victoria's vapid observations and validate her relevance. "That's very kind," I said, meeting his eyes directly. "But I have a conference call with our Singapore lab at 11. The time difference, you know." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Singapore can wait," he said, still smiling. "This is about building relationships, Lauren, being part of the inner circle." "I appreciate that, Marcus, really. But the enzyme stability data can't wait. We're at a critical junction with the formulation." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm sure Brent could handle that call." Brent Maddox, the golden boy from commercial development who'd been sniffing around my department lately. "Brent doesn't have the biochemistry background to interpret the results," I said evenly. "I need to be on that call." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Around us, the party continued laughter, clinking glasses, the white noise of corporate success. But in our little bubble by the window, a different kind of transaction was taking place. "I see," Marcus finally said. He took a sip of his whiskey, considering me over the rim. "Well, we can't have the science suffering, can we?" "No," I agreed. "We can't." He patted my shoulder, a gesture that managed to be both paternal and threatening. "Perhaps next time, then, Victoria will be disappointed." As he walked away, I knew with crystalline clarity that I'd just crossed a line. Not the obvious one, refusing to play the game was forgivable if you delivered results. No. I'd committed the cardinal sin of corporate America. I'd said no to power without providing the proper genuflection. In the window's reflection, I watched him rejoin a cluster of VPs, watched him lean in and say something that made them all turn to look at me, not with curiosity, with something colder. I finished my champagne and left the party at 9:45, taking the elevator down to my lab. The Singapore call was real, but it wasn't until 11. I had 15 minutes to sit in the darkness of my office, staring at the wall of patents and publications that bore my name, and wonder if I'd just signed my own termination letter. 3 days later, I'd have my answer. But that night, I pulled up the trial data and lost myself in the beautiful complexity of molecular structures and therapeutic windows. The science was clean, pure. It didn't care about power plays or penthouse gatherings. If only I'd known then that science alone wasn't enough to protect what you've built, that in the corporate world, refusing a drink could cost you everything. But then again, maybe I did know. Maybe that's why I'd already started backing up my files. The dismantling began on Monday morning, subtle as a paper cut. I arrived at 7:30 as usual, badge swiping green at the security checkpoint, but when I reached the executive conference room for the weekly pipeline review, my badge flashed red. The security guard, someone new, shrugged apologetically. Must be a glitch. Dr. Whitaker, I'll call it. Except it said my clearance had been adjusted per management directive. The meeting started without me. By Tuesday, my assistant Caroline was reassigned to support a critical commercial initiative. By Wednesday, I discovered I'd been removed from the distribution list for board prep materials. Each erosion was small enough to seem accidental, plausibly deniable, death by 1,000 administrative cuts. Then Brent Maddox appeared in my doorway Thursday afternoon, all practiced concern and synthetic empathy. "Hey, Lauren, crazy times, right?" He settled into my guest chair without invitation. "Marcus asked me to help out with the R&D transition planning." "What transition?" His smile faltered for just a second. "Oh, I thought, well, with the restructuring and all, to better align with commercial objectives." I kept my face neutral while my mind raced. "I haven't received any communication about restructuring." Right. It's still in draft. But between us," he leaned forward conspiratorially, "they're looking at a more integrated approach, less siloed. You know how it is." I did know. I knew that integrated meant controlled, and less siloed meant less autonomous. I also knew that Brent had been gunning for a VP title for 2 years. "I'll need to see the official proposal," I said. "Of course, I'm just here to help. Actually," he pulled out his tablet. "Could you walk me through the latest formulation data Marcus wants me up to speed?" Every instinct screamed danger. "That data is proprietary to the R&D function until phase completion." His boyish smile hardened at the edges. "Come on, Lauren, we're all on the same team here." After he left, I locked my door and opened my laptop. What I found made my blood run cold. The technical reports I'd authored over the past year, my reports, with my methodologies and insights, were being redistributed through the system. The metadata showed recent modifications. The author field had been changed to R&D team, with Brent Maddox listed as contributing editor. They weren't just pushing me out, they were erasing me. That night, I stayed until 11:45, systematically documenting everything. Screenshot after screenshot, timestamp after timestamp. I uploaded it all to a personal cloud server, each file encrypted and date verified. Friday brought the final insult, an email from HR, CCing Marcus and legal. "Dear Dr. Whitaker, as part of our organizational optimization, your role is being evaluated for strategic alignment, effective immediately. Brent Maddox will oversee day-to-day R&D operations to ensure continuity during this transition. Please direct all external communications through Mr. Maddox's office." Translation: you're quarantined. I read it 3 times, each word a precisely placed blade. They hadn't fired me too messy, too much potential for wrongful termination. Instead, they were suffocating me professionally, hoping I'd resign in frustration. In the break room, conversations stopped when I entered. In the hallways, colleagues who'd sought my mentorship suddenly found their phones fascinating when I passed. The isolation was surgical, complete. But they'd made one mistake. In their haste to erase me, they'd forgotten that I'd built this program from the ground up. Every protocol, every synthesis pathway, every stability study bore my intellectual fingerprint. And buried deep in the employment agreement I'd negotiated 11 years ago was a clause nobody had bothered to read carefully, a clause about intellectual property rights in cases of constructive dismissal. That weekend, I met with Patricia Volker, an intellectual property attorney who specialized in biotech disputes. I spread the documents across her conference table like evidence at a crime scene. She studied them for an hour, occasionally making notes, sometimes pulling up cases on her laptop. Finally, She looked up, and her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Dr. Whitaker," she said, "they've handed you a loaded weapon. The question is, are you prepared to use it?" I thought about Marcus's condescending pat on my shoulder, about Brent's smug entitlement to my life's work, about every brilliant woman I'd watched get sidelined for refusing to play the game. "I've been preparing," I said, "since the moment I started backing up my files." Patricia's smile widened. "Then let's discuss what happens when someone tries to steal $88 million worth of your brain." The war was silent, but it had begun. And unlike them, I knew exactly where all the bodies were buried because I'd been the one documenting every experiment, every failure, every breakthrough that led to their precious formula. They thought they were conducting a campaign. They didn't realize I was already 3 moves ahead. Patricia's office smelled like leather and litigation. She'd pulled up the original employment contract on her monitor, highlighting section 7.3.4 in yellow, a clause so densely written it might as well have been in Sanskrit. "This is beautiful," she murmured, almost reverently. "Did you have counsel when you negotiated this?" "My father was a patent attorney," I said. "He died the year before I joined Sinvatec, but he taught me to read every word like it might save my life someday." "Smart man." She zoomed in on the critical language. "Look here. In the event of constructive dismissal or demonstrable bad faith appropriation of intellectual property, the primary inventor retains right of withdrawal for any pending patent applications not yet formally assigned to external parties." "They haven't filed the final patent yet," I said. "They're waiting until after the Series D closes to avoid early disclosure to competitors." Patricia leaned back, fingers steepled. "And all the provisional patents list you as primary inventor." "Every single one. I insisted on it during the annual review negotiations. Marcus thought I was being vain." Men like Marcus always confuse self-protection with vanity. She pulled up another document. "Now, this metadata you've collected, it shows they're already redistributing your work without attribution." I handed her a flash drive. 347 documents, original versions with my authorship, modified versions with Brent's name added or mine removed entirely, all with traceable edit histories. She plugged it in, scanning through file after file. Her expression grew more predatory with each click. "They're idiots," she said finally. "They didn't even try to hide the digital trail. Look," she pointed to a timestamp. "This report was modified at 2:17 a.m. on Saturday." Who works at 2:17 a.m. on Saturday? Someone trying to rewrite history before Monday's board meeting. Exactly. Patricia opened a new document and began typing rapidly. "Here's what we're going to do. We file a formal notice of intellectual property withdrawal based on bad faith appropriation. We don't threaten, we just file, quietly, with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Won't they get notified?" "Eventually, but there's a processing delay. If we time this right..." She checked her calendar. "When's the Series D presentation to investors?" "April 15th, 10 days from now." "Perfect. We file on April 8th. By the time the notice hits their legal department, they'll be mid-pitch. The investors will ask about IP assignments, standard due diligence. Sinvatec will confirm all patents are secured. Then the truth surfaces. Like a torpedo they never saw coming, Patricia's fingers flew across the keyboard. "But we need more than the employment contract. Tell me about the core formula, the one worth $88 million. How much of that is your work?" I pulled out my personal lab notebook, the one I'd never digitized, never shared. Page 143. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd been running variations for 6 months. Everyone else had given up on the delivery mechanism. She studied my handwritten notes, the coffee stains and crossed-out calculations. The moment of discovery circled in red ink. "This is your handwriting." Every word. And here, I flipped pages. My signature and date on every entry, witnessed by Dr. Sarah Kim, who left Sinvatec last year. She'll testify if needed. "What about Brent? What's his actual contribution?" I almost laughed. "Brent couldn't synthesize aspirin if you gave him the recipe. His background is in sales. He has an MBA, not a PhD. The most complex formula he's ever worked with is his expense report. Patricia documented everything, building our case with methodical precision. Then she paused, studying me. You know, once we file this, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything: NDAs, non-competes, trade secret violations, anything to muddy the water. Let them. I thought about Monday's humiliation, Tuesday's isolation, Wednesday's systematic erasure. They think they're stealing a formula. They don't understand they're stealing my life's work. My father used to say possession is 9/10 of the law, but he was wrong. Documentation is 10/10 of the law. Speaking of possession, Patricia pulled up one more screen. The formula itself, where is it? I smiled for the first time in days. The complete synthesis protocol, the one with all the temperature curves, pH adjustments, and stability data, the one that actually works. That's the one. It exists in exactly 2 places: my personal lab notebook, which you're holding, and here. I tapped my temple. They have fragments, data points, but the full protocol, the one that turns theory into an $88 million reality, they restructured the wrong person for that. Patricia closed her laptop with a satisfied snap. Dr. Whitaker, I've handled a lot of IP theft cases, but this is art. They didn't just hand you a weapon. They loaded it, cocked it, and painted a target on their own foreheads. So we file on the 8th. And then we wait for the beautiful sound of $88 million, discovering it has no foundation to stand on. I signed the retainer agreement with the same pen I'd used to document my breakthrough. Outside Patricia's office window, Austin's skyline glittered with promise and peril. Somewhere in that maze of glass and ambition, Marcus Thornton was probably raising a toast to his brilliant restructuring. Brent was likely practicing his investor presentation, stumbling over scientific terms he didn't understand. They thought they'd won. They thought refusing a drink was my only act of defiance. They were about to learn that was just the beginning. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Mandatory attendance. The email said, "Strategic realignment announcement." I arrived 5 minutes early, choosing a seat in the middle row, not too eager, not too removed. Around me, my former team whispered nervously. Sarah, my lead biochemist, caught my eye and quickly looked away. David from quality control studied his phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. 3 weeks ago, these people would have walked through fire for me. Now I was radioactive. Marcus entered with his usual choreographed authority, Brent trailing behind like an eager spaniel. The lights dimmed for the PowerPoint that would formally end my career. "Thank you all for being here," Marcus began, his voice carrying that false warmth executives perfect in media training. "Change is never easy, but it's essential for growth. Today, we're announcing a new structure for our R&D division that will better position Cinvatec for our next phase of expansion." Slide 1. A new org chart. My name had vanished like it never existed. After careful consideration and in the spirit of collaborative transition, Dr. Lauren Whitaker has agreed to step back from her role to pursue new opportunities. He paused, letting the corporate euphemism settle. We thank her for her years of service and wish her well in her future endeavors. The room was silent. 43 people who knew exactly what I'd built, what I'd sacrificed, what I'd achieved, and not one met my eyes. Moving forward, Marcus continued, Brent Maddox will assume leadership of R&D, bringing his commercial expertise to accelerate our pipeline development. Brent stood, smoothing his tie. Thanks, Marcus. I'm excited to build on the foundation that's been established. My door's always open, and I look forward to working with all of you to take our science to the next level. Our science. The words tasted like ash in the air. Lauren, Marcus said, his tone shifting to performative concern. Would you like to say a few words? Every face turned to me. This was the moment they expected tears, or anger, or desperate pleading. The moment where I'd either rage against the machine or slink away defeated. I stood slowly, smoothing my blazer, and walked to the front of the room. Thank you, Marcus. My voice was steady, almost warm. It's been an incredible journey. 11 years of discovery, innovation, and breakthrough moments that define a career. I'm particularly proud of the therapeutic compound we've developed every late night, every failed experiment, every small victory that led to something truly revolutionary. I paused, meeting Brent's eyes. Mr. Maddox, you're inheriting something special. I'm sure you'll find the technical specifications, educational, the synthesis protocols in particular require such precise understanding. One small deviation temperature, pH, timing, and instead of a therapeutic breakthrough, you have very expensive waste. His smile flickered uncertainly. To my team, I continued, you are brilliant scientists. Remember that. Your expertise, your insights, your innovations, they matter. Document everything. Sign your work. Science is about truth, and truth has a way of surfacing. Marcus stepped forward, clearly wanting to end this. Thank you. Lauren, HR has prepared your transition paperwork. Already handled, I said pleasantly. I signed everything this morning, clean break, as requested, though I did notice one interesting detail in the separation agreement. The intellectual property assignment clause references all formally filed patents. Such specific language. The temperature in the room shifted. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Legal boilerplate, he said dismissively. Of course, I smiled. Words matter so much in legal documents. Well, I won't keep you. Big things ahead for Cinvatech, I'm sure. I walked back through the room, past my former colleagues, past my former life. At the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, Brent? You'll want to pay special attention to the enzyme stability data in batch 47. It's crucial. Then I left, heels clicking on marble, cardboard box of personal items balanced in my arms. Security escorted me to the parking garage standard procedure. They assured me, nothing personal. In my car, I placed the box in the passenger seat and checked my phone. A text from Patricia. Filing confirmed, April 8th, 9:00 a.m. East. The countdown begins. I drove home through Austin traffic. NPR discussing market volatility on the radio. My phone buzzed repeatedly, former colleagues, finally finding their courage in private messages. I ignored them all. That evening, I sat on my patio with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of vindication, somewhere across town. Brent was probably poring over my notes, trying to decipher 11 years of genius in an evening. Marcus was likely on calls with investors, promising them revolutionary returns based on stolen work he didn't understand. My neighbor waved from his yard. Hey, Lauren, off work early today. Something like that, I called back. Making some changes. Good for you. Life's too short to be unhappy. If only he knew. I wasn't unhappy. I was countdown ready. 7 days until April 8th. 7 days until an $88 million lesson in why you don't steal from the person who built the vault. I raised my glass to the sunset, to my father who taught me to read every word, to the formula sleeping safely in my mind, to the beautiful precision of well-documented revenge, to new opportunities, I whispered, and smiled. 7 days passed in calculated silence. I didn't answer calls, didn't respond to emails, didn't react to the LinkedIn messages from recruiters who'd somehow heard about my transition. I spent my days reading, running, remembering what life felt like outside Cinvatech's glass towers. On April 13th, 2 days before the Series D presentation, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, another voicemail. By the fourth call in 10 minutes, I knew something had shifted. I poured myself coffee and finally listened to the messages. The first was from Jackson Reeves, Cinvatech's chief legal officer. His usually smooth baritone cracked with stress. Lauren, it's Jackson. We need to speak immediately regarding some documentation questions. Please call back as soon as possible. The second, from Marcus himself. Lauren, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Call me directly. We can resolve this professionally. The third, from someone I didn't recognize. Dr. Whitaker. This is Amanda Chen from Arkmore Capital. We're conducting due diligence on Sinvatex Series D. We've received concerning information about patent assignments. Please contact me urgently. The fourth wasn't a voicemail at all, just Brent's number calling and hanging up repeatedly. I smiled, sipping my coffee. The patent office worked faster than Patricia had predicted. By evening, the calls had escalated. Jackson again. This time with barely controlled panic. Lauren, the USPTO has flagged our patent applications. There's a notice of withdrawal claim. This is clearly an error. We need your immediate cooperation to resolve this before it impacts our investor meetings. An error? How delightful. I texted Patricia, the phones are ringing. Her response was immediate. Do not engage. Let them panic. Documentation speaks louder than desperation. But Marcus wasn't done. At 9:47 p.m., he texted personally. Lauren, let's discuss this like adults. Whatever you think you're doing, it won't work. You signed agreements. You have obligations. Call me. I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing collection. The next morning, April 14th, the calls became frantic. HR, legal, even members of the board I'd never spoken to directly. Each voicemail more urgent than the last, painting a beautiful symphony of corporate panic. Then, at 2:15 p.m., came the one I'd been waiting for. Dr. Whitaker, this is Samantha Liu from Reuters. We're investigating a story about intellectual property disputes affecting Sinvatex's upcoming funding round. We understand you're the primary inventor on several key patents. Would you care to comment? The media had found the scent. I didn't call back. Instead, I opened my laptop and watched Sinvatex's pre-IPO stock price on the private market exchange, down 3% since morning. By close of trading down 7%. That evening, a black town car appeared in my driveway. Jackson Reeves himself, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Lauren, he said when I opened the door, may I come in? I don't think that's appropriate without my attorney present. His face flushed. We're not adversaries here. There's been a misunderstanding with the patent office. A clerical error. We need your help to correct it. A clerical error, I repeated slowly. How unfortunate. And right before your Series D. Don't be naive. You know what's at stake here. $88 million. Your formula. My formula, I interrupted. I thought it was Sinvatex's formula. Isn't that what Brent's been telling investors? Jackson's composure cracked. You want to play games fine, but remember, you signed confidentiality agreements, non-competes. If you think you can take that formula elsewhere, I don't need to take it anywhere, I said calmly. I'm not violating any agreements. I've simply exercised my legal right to withdraw unassigned patent applications based on documented bad faith appropriation of my intellectual property. Your own edit logs prove you tried to erase me. Those edits were standard administrative updates. At 2:17 a.m. on a Saturday, he went very still. Here's what's going to happen. Jackson, you're going to get back in your car. You're going to tell Marcus that I'm not interested in negotiating. And tomorrow, when your investors ask about the patent status, you're going to have to tell them the truth that you tried to steal $88 million worth of innovation from the person who created it, and now you have nothing. This isn't over, he said quietly. We have resources, legal teams, ways to make your life very difficult. I'm counting on it, I replied. Every threat, every intimidation tactic, every desperate move you make just adds to my documentation. So please, make my life difficult. Patricia would love the billable hours. After he left, I stood in my doorway, watching the town car's taillights disappear. My phone continued its symphony of desperation, 19 missed calls in the last hour alone. Tomorrow was April 15th, show day. The day Sinvatex would stand before investors and promise them revolutionary returns based on a formula they no longer controlled. I wondered if Marcus had figured it out yet, that the enzyme stability data I'd mentioned to Brent was meaningless without knowing which enzyme I was referring to. That the synthesis protocol he thought he possessed was missing 3 critical steps I'd never documented digitally. That 11 years of breakthrough science lived in my handwritten notes and my mind, and nowhere else. The phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made me pause. Victoria Thornton. I almost answered, curious what the CEO's wife could possibly want. Then I remembered her exclusive gathering, the drinks I'd refused, the first domino in this elaborate collapse. I let it ring. April 15th arrived with thunderstorms, as if the universe had a sense of dramatic timing. I spent the morning at Patricia's office, watching the show unfold on multiple screens. She'd set up a command center of sorts, financial news on one monitor, social media feeds on another, and her email constantly pinging with updates from contacts in the investment community. "It's starting," she said at 9:30 a.m., pointing to a breaking news alert. Developing Cinvatec Series D funding in question, amid IP disputes. The article was sparse on details, but heavy on implications. Sources close to the matter indicate key investors are reconsidering their positions following revelations about patent ownership disputes. By 10:15, the trickle became a flood. Arkmore Capital withdraws from Cinvatec round, cites due diligence concerns. Amanda Chen, the woman who'd called me 2 days ago, was quoted, "Arkmore maintains strict standards regarding intellectual property verification. We cannot proceed without clear ownership documentation." Patricia's phone rang. She listened, smiled, and hung up. That was a friend at Meridian Ventures. They're pulling out too. Apparently, Brent couldn't answer basic questions about the synthesis process during yesterday's technical review. "Shocking," I murmured, watching Cinvatec's private market valuation tumble in real time. The buzzwords started flying on Twitter. #Cinvatec was trending, accompanied by every startup founder's nightmare vocabulary: due diligence failure, IP uncertainty, investor exodus. At 11:47, my phone rang with a number I recognized: Dr. Sarah Kim, my former witness, calling from her new position at Johns Hopkins. "Lauren, I just got a call from Cinvatec's legal team. They want me to sign an affidavit saying I never witnessed your lab notebooks. They offered me $50,000. "What did you tell them?" "I told them to go fuck themselves, scientifically speaking, of course." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. "Thank you, Sarah. Are you kidding? You taught me everything I know. Besides, I kept copies of the pages I witnessed. Legal habit you drilled into all of us. Remember." By noon, Reuters had published a deeper dive, Inside Cinvatec's 88-dollar meltdown, how a biotech giant lost its crown jewel. The article was brutal in its precision, citing multiple sources familiar with the matter, who painted a picture of corporate hubris and intellectual property theft. One unnamed source, definitely someone from the investor side, was particularly damning. They presented comprehensive data but couldn't explain basic mechanisms. It became clear the supposed R&D leadership didn't understand their own product. Patricia pulled up another screen. "Look at this, 3 more firms just announced they're passing on the round. The valuation's been cut from 88 million to, wait for it, 32 million, and falling." At 1:20 p.m., Marcus called again. This time, I answered. Satisfied. His voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual polish. "I'm not sure what you mean, Marcus." "Don't play coy. You've destroyed everything. 20 years of building this company, and you've burned it down over what hurt feelings: a missed cocktail party. You tried to steal my life's work," I said evenly. "You redistributed my research, erased my contributions, and handed my innovations to someone who can't even pronounce half the compounds correctly. This isn't about feelings, it's about facts." "We can fix this," he said, desperation creeping in. "Come back. Full reinstatement, VP title, stock options, whatever you want." "What I want," I said, "is what I already have. Clear documentation of ownership. You should have read section 7.3.4 more carefully. You think you've won? You'll never work in biotech again. I'll make sure of it." "Marcus," I said gently, "I'm the one who created an $88 million formula. You're the CEO who just lost it. Which one of us do you think the industry will remember?" The line went dead. By market close, Cinvatec's valuation had stabilized at $28 million, a $60 million haircut in a single day. Board members were calling for emergency meetings. The Series D was officially dead. Patricia cracked open a bottle of champagne she'd been saving. You know what the beautiful part is? They still can't replicate your formula. They have fragments, pieces, but without your complete protocol. They have very expensive nothing, I finished. We clinked glasses as her computer pinged with another news alert. This time from TechCrunch. Exclusive Valtrionex rumored to be courting former Cinvatec R&D chief. I hadn't spoken to Valtrionex yet. Looks like your phone's about to get busy again, Patricia observed. But this time, with the right kind of calls. Outside, the thunderstorm had passed, leaving Austin washed clean and gleaming. Somewhere in a glass tower downtown, an emergency board meeting was convening. Accusations would fly. Blame would be assigned. Heads would roll. But none of that was my problem anymore. I'd been erased, so I'd returned the favor. They'd tried to steal $88 million worth of innovation. Instead, they'd learned that some things can't be restructured, reassigned, or stolen. Some things can only be created by the people who understand them. And I was the only one who truly understood what I'd built. The call from Valtrionex came at 9:07 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 1 week after Cinvatec's implosion. Dr. Whitaker. This is Michael Delacroix, CEO of Valtrionex. I believe we have some mutual interest to discuss. I'd done my homework on Delacroix, MIT graduate, former Pfizer executive, built Valtrionex from a 10-person startup to a billion-dollar competitor to Cinvatec in just 8 years. More importantly, he and Marcus Thornton absolutely despised each other, some old grudge from their Pfizer days that had festered into corporate warfare. I'm listening, I said. I'd prefer to have this conversation in person. Are you available for lunch today? Uchi, 1 p.m. Uchi, Austin's most exclusive sushi restaurant, not hiding in conference rooms or sending lawyers. A public meeting, a public statement. I'll be there. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I'd worn to present at the International Biotech Symposium last year. If I was going to turn corporate revenge into opportunity, I'd look the part. Michael Delacroix was already seated when I arrived, impossible to miss with his silver hair and European tailoring. He stood as I approached, extending a hand. Dr. Whitaker, your reputation precedes you. As does yours, Mr. Delacroix. Please, Michael. He gestured to the seat across from him. I took the liberty of ordering the omakase. I hope you don't mind. Not at all. We made small talk through the first course, Austin's growth, the biotech landscape, carefully avoiding the elephant sashimi in the room. Finally, over the second course, he leaned forward. I'll be direct. We want you, more specifically, we want your formula, your expertise, and your ability to execute where others have failed. My formula comes with complications, I said carefully. You mean the patent dispute? He smiled. Our legal team has reviewed the situation. Your position is ironclad. Cinvatec has no claim to unassigned patents, and from what we understand, they lack the technical knowledge to recreate your work even if they wanted to. And you're comfortable with the optics. Hiring someone in active dispute with a competitor. His smile widened. Dr. Whitaker, I've been waiting 5 years for Marcus Thornton to hand me a weapon against him. The fact that the weapon is also a brilliant scientist with a revolutionary therapeutic compound, that's just poetry. The waiter placed the next course before us. Michael continued. Here's my offer. Senior Vice President of Therapeutic Development. Base salary of $450,000. Signing bonus of $2 million. Full laboratory autonomy. And most importantly, he paused for effect. Your name as primary inventor on all patents, all publications, all press releases. We want the world to know exactly who created this breakthrough. Triple my Cinvatec salary, public recognition, autonomy. It was everything I'd earned and been denied. There's one more condition, I said. He raised an eyebrow, waiting. I want to build my own team, full hiring authority. Some of Cinvatec's best people are trapped there, watching Brent Maddox butcher their work. I want to offer them a way out. Done. Anyone except active C-suite executives. I won't have Marcus claiming we're poaching leadership. I don't want their leadership. I want their scientists. We shook hands over pristine sushi, sealing $88 million worth of revenge with wasabi and soy sauce. The paperwork took 3 days. Patricia handled the patent transfer with surgical precision, every document time-stamped, notarized, filed in triplicate, the formula, complete with the missing steps Cinvatec never knew existed, officially became Valtrionx property with my name emblazoned as creator. On Friday, my first day at Valtrionx, Michael had arranged something special, a press conference. I stood at the podium, looking out at a room full of journalists, industry analysts, and cameras. In the back, I spotted a few familiar faces, former Cinvatec employees who'd somehow heard about the announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael began, Valtrionx has always believed that innovation comes from investing in brilliant minds and giving them freedom to create. Today, we're thrilled to announce that Dr. Lauren Whitaker, the biochemist behind the revolutionary TRX4 compound, is joining our team as Senior Vice President of Therapeutic Development. The cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes. Dr. Whitaker's groundbreaking work in enzyme-targeted therapy represents a potential breakthrough in treating autoimmune conditions. We're proud to provide her with the resources and support to bring this innovation to patients who desperately need it. He turned to me. Dr. Whitaker, would you like to say a few words? I stepped to the microphone, thinking of all the moments that led here. Marcus's condescension, Brent's smug appropriation, the silence of colleagues who knew better, the systematic erasure of my contributions. Thank you. Michael, science is about truth. It's about rigorous documentation, repeated validation, and the integrity to acknowledge where innovations truly originate. I'm excited to join a company that understands these values. I paused, knowing the next words would be quoted in every industry publication. The TRX4 compound represents 11 years of dedicated research. Every failure that led to success, every late night in the lab, every breakthrough moment, they all have one name attached to them. I'm grateful to Valtrionx for recognizing not just the value of the science, but the scientists behind it. The subtext wasn't subtle. Anyone who'd followed the Cinvatec story knew exactly what I meant. I look forward to building a world-class team here and bringing this therapeutic to market, because ultimately, this isn't about corporate politics or patent disputes. It's about the patients whose lives we can change. The questions came fast and pointed. I answered them with calm precision. Each response another nail in Cinvatec's coffin. Yes, I was the sole inventor. Yes, Valtrionx had full patent rights. No, I couldn't comment on my former employer's current R&D capabilities. That evening, the headlines were everything Patricia had predicted. Valtrionx secures 88 million. Formula and its creator. Dr. Lauren Whitaker joins rival after Cinvatec patent dispute. From erased to embraced, how one scientist reclaimed her innovation. My phone buzzed with messages, Sarah Kim wanting to discuss opportunities. Other former colleagues suddenly finding their courage. Competitors reaching out with their own offers. I ignored them all. I'd found my new home, my new platform, my new beginning. And somewhere in Austin, in a glass tower with a depleted valuation and a CEO who'd learned too late that some people can't be restructured out of existence, I knew they were reading the same headlines. The formula was mine, the future was mine, and everyone now knew it. Monday morning at Valtrionx felt like stepping into a different universe. My corner office on the 18th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Austin's skyline. On the desk, a single orchid and a handwritten note from Michael. Build something extraordinary, M. I'd barely settled in when my new assistant knocked. Dr. Whitaker. Someone from building security is here. Says it's about an incident downstairs. In the lobby. Security had detained 2 men in expensive suits. I recognized them immediately. Cinvatec's legal counsel. They were asking employees about you, the security chief explained. trying to serve some kind of papers. I took the documents they'd been clutching, a cease and desist, claiming I'd violated non-compete agreements, trade secret theft, corporate espionage, the usual desperate playbook. Gentlemen, I addressed them directly, please inform Mr. Thornton that any legal communication should go through Valtrionx's counsel. Also let him know that Cinvatec is now under federal investigation for securities fraud, something about misrepresenting asset ownership to investors. I'm sure you'll be quite busy with that. Their faces went pale. The investigation news hadn't broken publicly yet. That afternoon, I held my first team meeting. I'd successfully recruited 7 of Cinvatec's best researchers, including Sarah Kim, who'd flown in from Baltimore just to join what she called the reunion tour of everyone Brent couldn't understand. Let's be clear, I told them. We're not here for revenge. We're here because we can finally do the work properly. No politics, no stolen credit, just science. But the universe wasn't done with its poetic justice. Wednesday brought the news everyone in biotech had been waiting for. The Austin Business Journal ran a cover story. Cinvatec CEO Marcus Thornton steps down amid federal probe. The article was delicious in its details. The board had discovered Thornton's attempt to falsify invention records. Brent Maddox had been terminated after failing to produce any viable research in his brief tenure. The company's valuation had dropped to $12 million, barely enough to cover their legal fees. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the tone immediately. I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed lives. Victoria. I deleted it without responding. Then another text, this one from Marcus himself. You win. I hope it was worth it. Worth it. I looked around my new lab, at my team eagerly discussing the next phase of trials, at my name properly displayed on every document. Yeah, it was worth it. That evening, I stayed late reviewing research protocols. The building was quiet, just me and the hum of equipment. At 9:45, I found myself at the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Cinvatec's building stood half empty, hemorrhaging talent and value. My phone rang. Patricia. Have you seen the news? She asked without preamble. Which news? Valtrionx stock, up 18% at market close. The press release about your formula just hit the wire services. Wall Street loves a comeback story. 18% in one day. The exact percentage I'd mentioned in my resignation daydream, now manifested in reality. I walked to my desk and pulled out a yellow sticky note from my drawer, the same brand I'd imagined leaving for Marcus. But instead of a snarky message, I wrote something different. Documentation is everything. Truth always surfaces. Build what matters. I stuck it to my computer monitor, a reminder, a philosophy, a victory lap compressed into 11 words. 6 months later, the TRX4 compound entered Phase 3 trials. The FDA fast-tracked it based on preliminary results. Medical journals competed to publish our findings. My name, fully credited, properly acknowledged, appeared in headlines around the world. At the International Biotech Symposium, I gave the keynote address. In the audience, I spotted several former Cinvatec employees, now scattered across different companies. They smiled and nodded. We were all survivors of the same shipwreck, now sailing our own vessels. During the Q&A, someone asked about corporate culture and innovation. Innovation requires trust, I said. Trust that contributions will be acknowledged. Trust that brilliance won't be buried for political convenience. The moment an organization betrays that trust, it begins to die not all at once, but in 1,000 small cuts of lost potential. The moderator pressed any specific examples. I smiled. Let's just say I've learned that when someone invites you for drinks, they're not always offering friendship. Sometimes they're testing obedience, and sometimes the most powerful word in business is no. The audience laughed knowingly. Everyone knew the story by now. It had become legend in biotech circles, the woman who refused a drink and toppled an empire. After the symposium, I returned to my office to find a package on my desk. No return address. Inside, A bottle of extremely expensive champagne and a card. You were right. It wasn't about the drinks. A friend who should have stood up. I never found out which former colleague sent it. It didn't matter. I donated the champagne to our next team celebration and got back to work. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge wasn't watching them fall. It was rising without them. It was building something extraordinary on the ashes of their arrogance. It was knowing that every success, every breakthrough, every life saved by our therapy would carry my name, the name they tried to erase. I kept that sticky note on my monitor, a small yellow flag of victory. And every morning when I sat down at my desk, I saw it and remembered. I didn't refuse their drinks. I refused to be diminished, and that made all the difference. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of corporate revenge and triumph, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever stood up to office politics? What would you have done in Lauren's shoes? Let me know in the comments.